Why did the air feel heavier than usual that day? Maybe it was the storm building somewhere over the horizon. Maybe it was the weight of silence before everything turns chaotic. Or maybe it was because Noel Hart knew, deep down, that this mission was different, that something about it felt wrong, even before the first rotor turned. The US-60 Blackhawk jolted hard as it banked low over a wall of endless green. Its rotors shredded humid air at barely 200 feet, vibrating through the bones of everyone inside. The light was dying fast late afternoon, the color of tarnished brass, and the jungle below looked like a living, breathing creature. It swallowed sound. It swallowed people. Noel sat in the cargo hold, the smell of hydraulic fluid and gun oil mixing with sweat. She ran her gloved hand along the body of her HK-416, tracing the familiar lines like a prayer. Her weapon was clean, tight, and ready, a part of her in every way that mattered. 90 seconds to insertion. The crew chief's shout cut through the thunder of blades, his voice rough and direct. His hand signals carved shapes through the air, visible only by the glow sticks fixed to his wrists. Noel nodded, tightening her chin strap, securing her night vision goggles. Her breathing steadied, rhythmic. Every muscle in her body remembered the drills. She looked to her left, Major Dean Rohr, the team leader. Calm, unflinching. His gaze met hers, one silent nod exchanged between two people who'd long since stopped needing words. Across from them, Ethan Tech, Hale hunched over his comms gear, checking frequencies. Nora Vega, compact lethal, the team's weapons specialist, locked a fresh mag into her rifle with that crisp click that meant readiness. Cal Doc Walker, the medic, was quiet, eyes unfocused but alert, mentally running through casualty drills he prayed he wouldn't need. 5 souls in a steel box flying into the mouth of a jungle that had swallowed platoons whole. Below them, the canopy broke in flashes, rivers glinting like knives, clearings barely the size of a helipad, and somewhere down there, a man was running for his life. A CIA officer, Adam Mercer, deep cover. His encrypted laptop contained data that could tip an entire war. The enemy knew it. That was why they were flooding the jungle with search teams, moving like ghosts through the trees, every one of them ready to kill to get that intel first. The brief had been short, stripped of emotion. Fast rope insertion, locate the operative, recover the intel, extract before nightfall. 4 hours of daylight, 70 kilometers of enemy ground. 30 seconds, the crew chief bellowed, voice muffled by his mic. Noel stood. Her boots clanged against the metal floor. She pulled the fast rope gloves tight, felt the familiar resistance in her palms. The rope hung coiled like a wading serpent, thick and heavy beside the door. Outside, the world blurred, wind, color, light, noise all mixing into one pulse. She stared down into the storm of green. Somewhere in that chaos, she would land. Somewhere in that silence, men were already waiting with rifles. The Blackhawk flared violently, nose up, fighting gravity to hover over a patch of clearing barely the size of a tennis court. The jungle reached upward like it wanted to pull the bird down. Through her NVGs, the drop zone looked impossibly small. Go, 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 the crew chief roared. Noel stepped forward without hesitation. There was no room for hesitation. She gripped the rope and leaned out into the blur, and then the world dropped away beneath her. 80 feet of open air. She slid fast, boots braced, knees bent, the rope burning faintly through her gloves. Her HK-416 slammed against her vest with each twist of her body until she hit the mud hard and rolled into a crouch. The sound of the rotor blades crashed above her, fatting quickly as the helicopter began to climb away. Clear, she whispered into her comms, sweeping her sector, muzzle tracking movement through the trees. Major Rohr landed next, silent as a ghost. Then Hale, Vega, and finally Doc Walker. Within 30 seconds, they were alone, 5 operators standing in the middle of a green world that hated them. Rally Point Alpha, Roar's voice came soft and precise through their encrypted channel. Standard dispersion. Hart, you're on point. Vega, rear security. Move. Noel nodded once, took a breath and stepped forward. The jungle swallowed them whole. Every footstep sank into mud that tried to claim her boots. Roots coiled beneath the surface like hidden traps. The canopy was so thick the afternoon already looked like dusk. The air smelled of wet decay, rot, sap, and the faint metallic sting of distant gunfire. Her HK-416 felt alive in her hands. It was more than a weapon, it was a promise. Short enough to maneuver through the brush, accurate enough to trust when things went wrong. She zeroed it herself before deployment. She knew exactly where each round would land. 7 meters spacing between operators. They moved like one slow-moving animal, breathing, pausing, scanning, every sense sharpened. Roar's voice was a whisper. Tech, status on our package. Hale crouched, antenna flicking as he adjusted his receiver. Signal active. Northeast, 1.8 kilometers. Stationary for 30 minutes. Could be hiding, Vega said from the rear. Or captured, Noel murmured. Her tone was flat, but her stomach tightened. She'd seen that pattern before, a locator beacon staying still for too long. Or bait, Doc added quietly. Noel's eyes scanned ahead. The jungle didn't just hide danger, it breathed it. She could feel the tension in her shoulders, that familiar ache between control and fear. We won't know till we get eyes on, Roar said. Keep moving. The team pushed forward. The deeper they went, the heavier everything felt. Time blurred. It was just motion, mud, breath, whisper, wind. Then Noel saw it. Hold. Her fist shot up. The team froze instantly, every weapon pivoting outward. The air felt like it stopped moving. She crouched low, squinting ahead. Something light tan caught her eye, a scrap of fabric snagged on a branch 15 meters ahead. Possible evidence, she whispered. Fabric on vegetation northeast 15. Roar didn't hesitate. Hart, Vega, check it out. Everyone else maintain cover. Noel advanced, slow and deliberate. Each step deliberate, heel to toe, rifle steady. Vega shadowed her from 10 meters behind, covering her flank. Up close the cloth revealed itself, a torn piece of khaki shirt, still damp, still carrying the scent of fresh sweat and fear. Fresh, Vega said softly, few hours max. Noel touched the edge, fingers coming away with dark red stains. Blood, she muttered. Not a lot, but he's hurt. The ground ahead showed scuffed earth, crushed leaves, and the faint impression of boot soles. Not the cheap sandals insurgents wore, but real Western boots. He's running fast, Vega said. Panicked, Noel added, probably being chased. She keyed her mic. Roar, we've got a trail. He's wounded but mobile, headed northeast toward last known beacon. Copy, no open comms, we move. They advanced, following the faint path. The jungle pressed closer, thicker now, darker. Each step forward felt like walking into a mouth. Noel's mind ran ahead of her, calculating angles, listening to her own breath. Her thoughts flickered back to the briefing room hours earlier, the silence when the colonel mentioned her name. The unspoken glance that said, "You're the only one with enough jungle experience for this." She nodded, outwardly calm, but inside she'd felt the weight settle. Because experience always came from surviving something terrible. Movement. Vega's voice whispered through the comms. Contact, 7 o'clock, 60 meters. Single individual moving parallel. Noel pivoted, scanning through the NVG's green haze. There a shape sliding through the brush, rifle low ready, olive drab fatigues, a K-pattern weapon not friendly. I've got eyes, she whispered. One hostile patrol pattern. Hold fire, Roar ordered softly. We're not compromised. The insurgent moved like he belonged here. Slow, methodical. He stopped once, crouched, scanned the jungle, and for one terrible second, Noel thought his gaze might land right on her. Her finger rested against the trigger guard. But he moved on, vanishing into the green. "Clear," Vega whispered. "Where there's one, there's more," Doc murmured. "They're searching," Roar said. "We move before they sweep back." The pace increased. Noel could feel her pulse rising. Every rustle behind her sounded like footsteps. Every insect hum felt like a warning. Then voices. She froze mid-step, raised her fist again. "Multiple hostiles ahead," she breathed. 75 meters, stationary. Roar's reply was instant. Off-trail concealment, find eyes. They melted into the vegetation. Leaves brushed her face as she slid behind a massive root, peering through her optic. 8 men in a rough circle. AKs, SKS. A PKM set up on a tripod, professional formation. And in the center, a man bound to a tree, hands tied, khaki shirt ripped and bloodied. Her pulse spiked. "I've got visual on the package," she whispered. "He's captured, looks beaten. 8 hostiles, mixed weapons, 1 heavy." "Tech confirm," Roar said. Hale raised his small screen. Even from this distance, the match was clear. "That's Mercer, it's him." Noel exhaled slowly, feeling the air shake in her lungs. Roar went quiet for a long second. "We're not leaving him." They knew what that meant. The odds were bad, but so what? Odds didn't matter to people like them. What mattered was the man tied to that tree and the duty they'd all signed up for. Vega's voice broke the silence. "I'll take the PKM gunner." "I've got the leader," Noel said softly, eyes locked on the insurgent barking orders. "First 2 seconds, we take control." "Doc, you move to Mercer the moment we open up," Roar ordered. "Tech, you're on me. Everyone else, maximum violence, minimum time." The plan was simple. The kind of simple that only works when everything else inside you is chaos. They shifted, silent as shadows, until each had a perfect line of fire. Noel pressed her cheek against the rifle's stock. Her target's chest filled the optic. 60 meters, wind minimal. Roar's whisper came through comms, calm, steady, final. 3, 2, 1, execute. Noel's finger squeezed once, twice. 2 sharp bursts cracked through the jungle. Her target folded instantly. And then the world exploded. Gunfire, shouting. Muzzle flashes like lightning through the trees. Noel pivoted, engaging the next target. 1 clean shot, 2, 3, bodies dropped before they could even process what was happening. Nora's round tore through the PKM gunner's skull, silencing the biggest threat in the first heartbeat. Doc sprinted through the chaos, knife flashing as he cut Mercer loose. "Package secure," he shouted. "Bound back, rally Bravo," Roar ordered. Noel was already moving, covering the flank as Hale and Roar laid down suppressive fire. The team shifted like clockwork, one firing, one moving, one watching. Rounds cracked past her head, slapping into trees. Bark and dirt sprayed across her face. She didn't flinch, didn't think. Just moved. Because when everything's chaos, instinct becomes truth. And her said, "Keep fighting." Why do some missions blur into silence, while others carve themselves into your bones? Noel didn't have time to ask herself that as the world around her erupted in chaos. Gunfire cracked through the trees, echoing in violent rhythm. Smoke, soil, and gunpowder choked the air. The jungle that had been so quiet seconds ago now sounded like a war zone. Her breathing fell into its own rhythm, measured, focused, rehearsed. Every heartbeat timed between bursts of fire. She moved low and fast, HK 416 tucked tight against her shoulder, muzzle sweeping through the foliage as brass casings fell in glittering arcs. "Covering," Nora Vega shouted, her voice sharp through comms. "Bound back," Major Roar ordered. They were already executing the maneuver before the words left his mouth. 5 people moving like one. Noel and Nora leapt backward to new cover positions, firing in controlled bursts to suppress the enemy while Roar and Hale dragged the freed CIA officer behind a fallen log. Adam Mercer, pale, bloody, disoriented, stumbled as Cal Walker hauled him by the arm. His wrists were raw from the bindings, his face battered purple and red. He looked dazed, like someone pulled out of a nightmare still trying to decide if he was awake. "Walker," Noel called, "he mobile." "Barely," the medic shouted back, "but he's alive." That was enough. Alive meant hope. Noel pivoted, fired again. 2 short bursts. One target dropped. Another vanished into the brush. The jungle absorbed everything: sound, movement, death, like it had done 1,000 times before. "Contact rear," Vega shouted. Roar didn't hesitate. "Rotate, heart, rear guard." Noel spun and dropped into a crouch, sweeping the dark wall of vegetation behind them. Muzzle flashes popped from the distance, small arms, maybe 50 meters out. She returned fire, 3 rounds at a time, calm and deliberate. One target fell. Another went silent. Her heart pounded, but her mind stayed cold. This was what training was for, to make chaos feel like order. "Rally point Bravo," Roar commanded. "We move in bounds, heart." Vega, move." Noel sprinted through the mud, boots sinking deep, rifle ready. She dove behind a downed trunk slick with moss. Her breath came out harsh. She could feel the pulse in her temples, that thrum that only happened in firefights when adrenaline drowned everything else. She looked to her right, Vega's face streaked with grime and sweat, her expression unreadable but steady. They exchanged a brief nod. Warriors didn't need words when bullets spoke louder. "Set," Noel shouted. Roar, Hale, and Walker bounded past, Mercer limping between them. The man's strength was fading fast. Every step looked heavier than the last. Noel caught a flicker of movement in her peripheral, a shadow breaking away from the tree line. She aimed, fired. The figure collapsed mid-stride. "Threat neutralized," she said into her mic, voice steady though her hands trembled from adrenaline. They moved again. Each bound took them deeper into the labyrinth. The jungle was closing in, every path narrowing, every tree a potential ambush point. By the time they reached Bravo, the sounds of pursuit were closer. Shouts, gunfire, the enemy wasn't giving up. "They're tracking us," Hale said, breath ragged. "They know the direction we're moving." "Then we stop giving them patterns," Roar replied. "Break south by southwest for 300 meters, then cut back east. We'll lose their trail." They moved. Branches clawed at Noel's face. Mud sucked at her boots. Her muscles burned, but she didn't slow. She couldn't. Mercer stumbled again. Walker grabbed him under the shoulder, whispering something Noel couldn't hear, probably the same quiet promise every medic gives the wounded. "You're gonna make it, brother, just a little further." But Noel saw the blood soaking Mercer's side. She knew time was slipping away. "Tech," she whispered, "you still got his beacon?" "Affirmative," Hale said. "Signal's strong. We're moving fast enough to confuse their direction tracking, but they're calling in reinforcements. We've intercepted their radio chatter, at least 20 more insurgents mobilizing west of us." "Then we move east before they can box us," Roar decided. They pushed forward again, cutting a new path through vines and brush. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The air felt thicker, pressing down like the weight of the entire jungle wanted to crush them. Suddenly a hiss, a sharp, unnatural sound. "Down!" Noel yelled instinctively. The RPG hit a tree behind them and exploded in a violent flash of orange and black. The shockwave punched through the clearing. The team went down hard. Debris rained from the canopy. Noel's ears rang. Her left arm throbbed. She blinked through the haze, her world spinning, hearing muffled shouts like they came from underwater. "Everyone up, move, move," Roar barked. She forced herself to stand. Pain shot through her shoulder, shrapnel, she realized. Nothing major, but deep enough to sting. She flexed her fingers, they still worked. That was all that mattered. They sprinted. The jungle erupted again behind them, Gunfire, shouting, more explosions. "They're getting organized," Vega shouted. "Doesn't matter," Roar said between breaths. "We're not dying here." They ran until the sound of pursuit dimmed behind them. Noel finally slowed, chest heaving. She leaned against a tree, sweat rolling down her neck, the metallic taste of adrenaline still sharp in her mouth. "Status," Roar demanded. "Vega green," Nora answered. "Hale green." "Walker green," Mercer stable but fatting. "Heart green," Noel said last. She wiped blood from her arm. "Minor shrapnel, no mobility loss." Roar nodded, scanning the map on his wrist display. "We're heading for Rally Charlie. From there, we hit the river and call for extract." "How far?" Noel asked. 2 clicks, Hale answered. "But sir, intercepts show they're moving to cut us off." "Then we change the plan," Roar said. "We make our own exit point." Noel's voice was quiet. "They won't expect that." Roar looked at her and smiled grimly. "Exactly." They kept moving. Every second felt stretched thin, the kind of minutes that lasted lifetimes. The forest hummed with tension. Distant gunfire echoed somewhere behind them, too close for comfort. Mercer stumbled again. Walker caught him before he hit the ground. "Stay with me," the medic urged. "Just a little longer." "I can make it," Mercer muttered weakly, voice breaking. "You're damn right you can," Walker said, hauling him upright again. Noel glanced back. For a moment she locked eyes with the man, the fear, the exhaustion, the gratitude flickering all at once. Then she turned forward. There was no room for pity out here. Pity got people killed. But compassion, quiet, controlled compassion that kept you human. Hours felt like days. The terrain got rougher, sloped downward, the ground giving way to a thin trail that twisted toward the sound of rushing water. The river. Noel exhaled. "We're close." The team gathered behind a ridge overlooking a muddy riverbank. The water was fast, brown with silt, swollen from rain. The current was brutal, good for losing pursuit, terrible for extraction. "Rally Delta," Roar said, pointing to a wide section of bank. "We hold here and call the bird." Hale was already setting up his comms gear, voice low but steady as he called for the Blackhawk. "Base, this is Ardent Team. Requesting hot extract at new coordinates. Repeat, hot extract, expect contact." Static, then a reply. "Ardent Team, this is Base. Copy new coordinates. Blackhawk 7-9er en route. ETA 70 minutes. 70, Roar muttered. "We'll hold." Noel looked out across the river. The wind moved the water like breath. The horizon looked peaceful, almost beautiful. The kind of beauty that doesn't belong in places like this. 70 minutes, Vega said quietly. "Feels like a lifetime." "Then we make it one," Roar said. They formed a defensive perimeter, each operator covering a sector, overlapping fields of fire. Doc set Mercer down, already working to stabilize him. "Broken ribs, probable internal bleeding," he said grimly. "We need that bird." "Keep him alive," Roar ordered. "That's your mission." Noel took position behind a fallen log, scanning west. Her heartbeat slowed as she settled into that familiar focus. The fear didn't disappear, it just learned to stay quiet. 10 minutes passed, then 20, the jungle whispered. Then movement. "Contact west," Noel shouted, snapping to her sights. Her rifle barked, precise, deliberate. The first insurgent fell before his rifle even lifted. "Multiple targets," Vega called. "At least a dozen." "Hold positions," Roar commanded. The firefight roared to life. The enemy advanced through the trees in pairs, disciplined and aggressive. These weren't amateurs. Noel fired, shifted, fired again. Her world shrank to sights, recoil, breath, reload. She didn't even realize she was talking to herself, small, calm whispers between bursts. "Steady, one more, breathe." RPG smoke hissed from the tree line. "RPG," Vega screamed. The rocket slammed into the river behind them. sending water exploding upward. "Suppress that team," Roar ordered. Noel caught a flicker of movement through the smoke. Two figures crouched near a fallen log, one reloading, one spotting. She steadied her breathing, ignored the chaos around her, and fired. The loader dropped. The second man reached for the launcher, and Noel's second shot found him too. "RPG team neutralized," she said calmly, slamming in a fresh magazine. "Good work," Roar replied. But there was no time to breathe. Hale's voice cut through the noise. "Movement on the river, boats incoming, 2 of them." Noel swung her rifle. 2 low-profile crafts powered upstream, each packed with fighters and heavy guns. Vega opened up first, her round stitching across the lead boat's hull. It spun, out of control, crashing into the bank. The second kept coming, its machine gun spitting fire that shredded trees around them. Noel ducked low, the air above her head turning to sawdust from splintered bark. "We can't hold forever," Walker shouted. "We don't have to," Roar said. "We just have to last 60 more minutes." But deep down, Noel knew 60 minutes was an eternity when every second was a fight to stay alive. She reached up, wiped mud and blood from her cheek, then reloaded. Somewhere behind the noise, beneath the panic, a strange calm filled her chest. "I'm not dying here," she thought, "not today." And as the enemy closed in again, Noel Hart raised her rifle, found her breath, and went back to work. Because that's what soldiers do when everything starts to fall apart. They keep fighting, even when the world around them doesn't. How long can a human heart beat at full speed before it burns itself out? Noel didn't know, but in that jungle by that river, surrounded by men trying to kill her, she was finding out. The firefight had dragged on past the point where time made sense. She'd lost count of her magazines, lost count of how many bodies went down. All that remained was rhythm, aim, fire, breathe, reload. The kind of trance that only soldiers know, where instinct replaces thought and movement becomes survival. The enemy was closing in again, smarter this time, using smoke, using the terrain. They knew the river pinned the Americans' backs. They were tightening the noose. "Contact west and south," Vega shouted. Her rifle cracked again, muzzle flashing. Noel dropped low behind the log, her shoulder pressed into wet bark. Bullets cut through the air above her, snapping branches. She fired 2 controlled bursts, dropped one target, then rolled left to shift angles. Her world shrank to the scope's circle and the tiny act of breathing. "Walker," Roar's voice came through the chaos. "Status on Mercer." "He's fatting," Walker yelled back. "Pulse weak, breathing shallow. I can keep him alive for another hour, maybe." "Then that's what you do." Roar's tone was steady, even as the ground shook around them. "We hold this position until that bird gets here." Ethan Tech, Hale crouched behind a rock, headset pressed tight to his ear. "Blackhawk 7-9er, this is Ardent Team. We are under heavy contact at extraction point. Request priority ETA confirmation." Static answered, then a voice calm, detached somewhere miles away. "Ardent Team, ETA 50 minutes. Hold position. Air support inbound. Repeat, air support inbound." 50 minutes. Noel felt her jaw tighten. 50 minutes of this would be an eternity. "Roger that," Hale replied. "We'll hold." Noel glanced toward Vega. Mud streaked her face, but her eyes were cold, focused. "You good?" Noel asked. Vega reloaded. "I've got 2 mags left, you?" 3. "Then we make them count." The 2 women exchanged a look, brief, but loaded with everything they didn't have time to say. The enemy opened up again, gunfire ripping through the trees. One round slammed into the log near Noel's head, splintering bark into her hair. Another ricocheted off her body armor, the impact jarring her ribs but not breaking through. She didn't flinch, just pivoted, fired, exhaled. She saw one insurgent fall, another duck back into cover. The smell of burned gunpowder and wet earth filled her nose. Every exhale tasted metallic. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear but from exhaustion. "Movement on the ridge," Hale shouted. "4 tangos moving to flank from high ground." "I see them," Noel said, sliding to her left. She sighted up the slope through the tangled green. The ridge gave them the advantage: elevation, visibility. If those 4 reached position, they could rain fire down and end this. Noel steadied her breath, locked her cheek against the rifle stock. Her pulse slowed. The world narrowed. She fired 1, 2, 3 rounds. The first target dropped. The second turned to run. She led him, squeezed again. He fell backward, rifle spinning from his hands. Vega took the third with a precise headshot. The fourth vanished into the brush. "Ridge clear," Noel reported, her voice low, even though her body screamed fatigue. Roar moved down the line, his tone steady as a drumbeat. "Good work. Hold your sectors. Hale, call the bird again in 30. Then a pause, a silence between gunfire. Noel blinked. The jungle sounds crept back in: distant birds, the rush of the river, her own heartbeat in her ears. It was strange how the quiet could feel louder than the fight. She looked at Mercer. His face was pale, blood pooling under his side. Walker was kneeling over him, hands stained red, whispering words she couldn't hear. It looked like prayer or maybe guilt. Noel's gaze drifted. Her eyes caught on something small: Mercer's backpack, lying half open beside him. The laptop was inside. The whole reason they were here. The entire reason these men were dying in the mud. She wondered if anyone would ever know what it cost to retrieve it. The thought hit her harder than she expected. She'd been in dozens of operations, seen plenty of soldiers die for intel, objectives, targets of opportunity. But this time, this man felt different. He wasn't a soldier. He was someone who'd made a mistake, gone too deep undercover, and now he was paying for it. And so were they. Her chest ached, not from the bruise, but from the quiet thought whispering beneath the gunfire. Is this what all of it comes down to? Files, data, missions no one will remember. But there was no room for questions. Because right then, the tree line erupted again. "Contact north," Vega shouted. A wave of insurgents burst through the foliage, shouting, firing wild but numerous. Dozens. "Shift fire north," Roar commanded. "Heart Vega suppress." They fired in perfect rhythm, the sound of 2 rifles singing through the chaos. Rounds cracked, trees splintered, men fell screaming. The air was alive with dust and flame. An RPG streaked through the tree line, this one closer. It exploded 20 meters to their left, showering them with mud and debris. The shockwave slammed Noel sideways, her rifle clattering into her chest. Her ears rang. She blinked, disoriented, the world a smear of smoke and color. Then someone grabbed her arm. "Vega. You good?" "Yeah," Noel breath shaking it off. "Still here." "Then shoot." That snapped her back. She found her rifle, rolled to her side, aimed through the smoke. An insurgent appeared through the haze, close, too close, his AK raised. Noel fired twice. He dropped mid-stride. "Close contact," she shouted. The team tightened their formation. Roar and Hale fired short, disciplined bursts. Walker crouched over Mercer, his pistol in one hand, still protecting his patient even as bullets cut the air. It felt endless. And then a sound. Low at first, faint, then growing. The deep, unmistakable roar of engines, not rotor blades this time, but jets. Roar looked up, hope flashing across his face. Air support inbound. Hale pressed his headset. "Cobra 111, this is Ardent Team. We are danger close to enemy forces. Marking position with IR strobe. Requesting immediate fire mission west of our location." Static, then a calm voice. "Ground Team, Cobra 111 copies. Visual on your IR marker. Confirm target zone west of your position." "Affirmative," Hale shouted. West side, multiple hostiles, bring the rain. Copy that, danger close, keep your heads down. Noel's pulse jumped. She ducked low, shouting, incoming. Then the sky broke open. The Fa-18 screamed over the jungle canopy, barely 500 feet overhead. The sound was a living thing, thunder wrapped in fire. The first burst hit before she could blink. The 20 cannons roared, tearing through the tree line. The jungle exploded, trees disintegrated, earth convulsed. The air turned to dust and flame. The world became light and sound. Noel pressed her face into the mud, teeth clenched. The ground shook like an earthquake. The air support shredded everything west of their perimeter in a matter of seconds. Then silence again. When Noel lifted her head, the west side was gone, flattened. Cobra 111, that's perfect, Hale said, breathless. Appreciate the love. Copy, ground team, the pilot replied. We'll stay on station for show of force. You're clear for extraction. Roar exhaled slowly. Beautiful work, everyone sound off. Heart green. Vega green. Hale green. Walker still with us, Mercer's stable. Outstanding, Roar said. We hold till the bird arrives. The Blackhawk's ETA was now 20 minutes. Noel leaned back against the log, chest heaving. Her body trembled, not from fear but from the sheer overload. The smell of burned earth lingered. Smoke curled through the air like ghosts. She looked at the river again, that same muddy ribbon, indifferent to everything. It would keep flowing long after they were gone. She caught herself thinking of home, the quiet nights before missions, the rare moments when she could breathe without scanning corners. She thought of the people who had no idea what places like this felt like. And for the first time in a long while, she let herself feel the weight of it. The fear, the fatigue, the loneliness of being the one who always walks forward when everyone else walks back. War wasn't glory, it was endurance. It was surviving long enough to wonder why you still were. Vega spoke quietly beside her. You ever think about what comes after all this? Noel looked at her, wiped sweat from her eyes. After. Yeah, when the missions stop, when the rotors aren't spinning anymore. Noel's voice was soft. I don't think it ever stops, not really. Vega nodded slowly. Yeah, me neither. The sound of rotor blades grew louder, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat coming to life again. Hale looked up, bird inbound. Set conditions for extract, Roar shouted. Hart Vega first on with Mercer, Hale Walker cover. The Blackhawk burst over the trees, nose dipping, side door open, crew chief signaling. The downdraft whipped the river into spray. Go, 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 Roar roared. Noel grabbed Mercer's vest, dragging him alongside Walker and Vega toward the chopper. Bullets snapped through the air again. The enemy wasn't done yet. Gunfire erupted from the tree line, tracer rounds slicing orange lines through the haze. The minigun on the Blackhawk's side spun up, a deafening mechanical scream that chewed the jungle apart. Noel hauled Mercer up the ramp, Vega covering her flank. The crew chief grabbed her vest and yanked her inside. Move, move. Roar and Hale were still outside, firing controlled bursts. Then Roar shouted, we're all in, lift. The pilot pulled pitch, the helicopter climbing fast. Tracer fire arced up from below, but it fell short. Inside, everyone was still breathing. Everyone was still alive. Noel leaned back against the cargo wall, rifle across her lap. The HK-416 was empty, the metal still warm from use. Her hands were trembling, her vision swimming with smoke and light. Roar looked at her, his voice low. Hell of a fight, Hart. She gave a small, tired smile, still standing. He nodded, that's what counts. Outside, the jungle shrank away beneath them, a green ocean swallowing all evidence of what had happened. And somewhere deep inside her, Noel knew this mission wasn't over. Not really. Because survival changes you. It leaves marks no one else can see. the kind that follow you home. What happens when the noise finally stops? When the gunfire fades and the rotor blades no longer shake the ground, what's left inside a soldier? For Noel Hart, it was the silence that hit hardest. The Black Hawk sliced through clouds of fatting smoke, banking west toward friendly airspace. Below, the jungle spread like a dark ocean, endless, indifferent, hiding everything that had just happened. Bodies, spent brass, the echoes of decisions that couldn't be undone. The Fa-18 still orbited above, low and slow, keeping watch. They looked almost peaceful from below, two streaks of gray against the crimson wash of the setting sun. Inside the helicopter, no one spoke for a long time. Noel sat against the cargo wall, HK-416 across her lap, bolt locked open, weapon empty. Her gloves were caked in mud, blood, and gun oil. Her fingers still trembled from the recoil. Mercer lay stretched across the floor between them, pale and barely conscious, his breathing shallow but steady. Cal Doc Walker knelt beside him, his hands moving with methodical precision. He kept pressure on a wound that refused to stop bleeding. The sound of the man's heartbeat monitor, a faint digital beep mixed with the low hum of the engines. "Vitals dropping," Walker said quietly. "We need to get him to medical now." The crew chief leaned forward. "ETA 15 minutes. Major Rohr gave a curt nod. "Do what you can, Doc, he'll make it." He didn't say it for realism. He said it because in this world you said what people needed to hear. Hope was a currency. Noel's gaze drifted out the open side door. The world below rolled past in streaks of green and brown, fading into the golden light of dusk. Somewhere down there, the jungle was already swallowing the evidence of what had just happened, gunfire fading into birdsong, flames dying into mist. Her thoughts didn't slow with the helicopter. They only grew louder. She could still hear the firefight in her ears, the way Vega's rifle cracked beside her, the shouts over comms, the muffled breath of her own panic. She could still feel the heat of the explosion that threw her sideways, still smell the burnt metal and blood. It didn't stop. It never really did. Rohr shifted across from her, helmet off now, his hair matted with sweat. His eyes were bloodshot but steady, that quiet, practiced calm of someone who'd carried command too long. "You did good out there," he said. Noel didn't answer right away. "Good doesn't feel like the word," she finally said. He studied her for a moment. "You saved Walker. You took out that RPG team before they tore us apart. You kept your head when the rest of the world was burning." Noel's eyes flicked back to Mercer. "And still, one man almost died because of us." "Because of them," Rohr corrected, "not because of you." But Noel didn't look convinced. She'd seen too much to believe in clean lines of blame. Out here, everything blurred. Heroism and guilt came in the same breath. The helicopter banked hard, the noise of the engines shifting as the pilot began descent. The base appeared below, a rough grid of concrete walls and floodlit pads, ringed by towers and wire. It looked small against the jungle, fragile, like it could vanish if someone turned away too long. "Hold on," the crew chief shouted. The Black Hawk flared and dropped fast. The landing gear hit hard, bounced once, then steadied. The rotors chopped the air into white dust and grit. Medics were already sprinting across the pad, stretchers ready. "Go, go, go." Walker and Vega lifted Mercer between them. The man groaned, still half-conscious. His fingers twitched weakly against Vega's arm. "You're okay," she told him. "You're going home." Noel climbed out after them, boots hitting the pad. The roar of the helicopter felt different now, less like chaos, more like closure. She squinted into the wind as Rohr and Hale followed behind. The crew chief leaned out and gave a quick thumbs up before the pilot pulled pitch again, the Black Hawk rising back into the sky. Then the noise was gone. Just the faint ringing left in her ears. Mercer was loaded onto a stretcher, medics already cutting through his shirt, shouting vitals. They pushed him toward the field hospital while an intel officer in plain fatigues ran alongside, clutching the recovered laptop to his chest like a newborn. Noel watched it all, the movement, the urgency, and felt nothing. Not yet. Roar turned toward his team. Weapons to the armory, gear to the team room, medical checks in 20, debrief at 1900. He started walking before anyone answered. The rest followed out of habit, tired bodies moving on muscle memory. Noel walked slower. Her legs felt heavier now that the danger was gone. She could feel the stiffness in her arm where shrapnel had nicked her. Pain returned in the quiet, always did. Inside the armory, the air was cool and metallic. Rows of rifles lined the walls like sleeping soldiers. The armorer looked up from his bench as she entered. "Rough day?" he asked, his tone casual, knowing better than to pry. Noel slung her HK-416 onto the counter. "About 190 rounds fired," she said softly. "No malfunctions." He gave a low whistle. "That rifle's earning its keep." She nodded. "It never quits." He inspected it briefly, the smell of gun oil filling the space. "I'll strip and clean it tonight. Have it ready for you by morning." Noel gave a faint smile. "You're assuming I'll need it tomorrow." The armorer shrugged. "You always do." She didn't argue. In the team room, the rest of the squad was already half out of their gear. Boots off, shirts drenched, faces hollowed out by exhaustion. The sound of Velcro, zippers, and quiet laughter filled the small space, that strange kind of laughter soldiers use when they don't know what else to do with what they've seen. Doc Walker leaned against the wall, a towel around his neck, staring into space. Vega sat cross-legged on the floor, cleaning her sidearm with meticulous focus. Hale was typing a report, headset still looped around his neck, his fingers trembling slightly each time he stopped to breathe. "Med says Mercer's stable," Walker finally said. "Broken ribs, internal bruising, mild concussion. He'll live." "Good," Roar replied from across the room, pulling off his vest. "Intel." "Laptop en route to Langley," Hale answered. "They'll start decryption within the hour." "Then we're done," Roar said simply. Noel looked up from where she sat, still half in her gear. "Are we?" Roar met her eyes. For a long second he didn't answer. Then he said quietly, "For now." The debrief came 2 hours later. They sat in a concrete room under fluorescent light, the kind of sterile glow that made everything look too sharp. A young intelligence officer typed as they spoke, recording every word. Roar led the briefing, walking through each phase of the operation: insertion, contact, rescue, exfil. His tone was clinical, detached. The analyst looked up. "Estimated enemy casualties." 30 to 40 KIA, Roar replied, "including 1 PKM team and multiple patrol elements." The officer nodded. "Any friendly casualties?" "None," Roar said. "Minor wounds only." "Exceptional work, Major," the officer said. "Langley reports that the recovered data includes locations of multiple insurgent supply caches. You've likely shortened this war by months." Vega let out a quiet breath that might have been a laugh. "Then maybe we'll get to sleep next month." The officer smiled faintly, missing the exhaustion behind the joke. "Debrief complete," he said, typing the final note. "Dismissed." They filed out one by one. Noel lingered. Her eyes stayed fixed on the wall map behind the desk, a sprawling grid of red circles marking hostile zones, green dots marking Allied bases. She realized something quietly horrifying. No matter how many red marks they erased, more always appeared. It was never-ending. That night she couldn't sleep. The base was quiet, the hum of generators mixing with the distant chirp of insects. She sat on the edge of her bunk, uniform top folded beside her, tank undershirt sticking to her skin. Her shoulder still ached from the shrapnel, though the medics had patched it cleanly. On the table in front of her lay her maintenance kit. The HK-416 was disassembled into perfect symmetry, barrel, bolt, upper, lower, charging handle, each piece cleaned until it gleamed. She ran a cloth over the bolt carrier, her hands moving by habit more than thought. There was something comforting in it, the ritual, the control. Out there, chaos ruled. In here, everything had order. She reassembled the rifle piece by piece, slow, deliberate. The sound of metal clicking into place was almost soothing. When she finished, she sat still for a long time. Her phone buzzed once, a text from Roar. Team meeting, 800, new op brief, pack for extended deployment. Noel exhaled. A small, tired smile touched her lips. Roger that, she typed back. She set the phone down, leaned back and looked up at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, another helicopter would spin up. Another mission would come. Another fight would test everything they'd just rebuilt. And she'd go again. Because that's what operators did. They didn't chase glory. They didn't seek headlines. They just showed up again and again when someone needed to walk into the dark. Outside, a wind moved through the base, rustling the flags on the towers. The night smelled like fuel, dust, and something faintly human. Noel lay back on her bunk, the rifle resting beside her like an extension of her heartbeat. Her last thought before sleep wasn't about medals or missions, or the man they'd saved. It was simpler. A quiet truth she'd learned to carry without words. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And that was enough. What does ready really mean? When the message comes down, the orders are cut and someone says, "You're up again." What part of a soldier ever feels ready for it? Noel Hart stared at her reflection in the steel mirror of her locker, the fluorescent light above flickering every few seconds. Her face was blank, streaked faintly with fatigue. The bruises under her eyes had faded into shadows. She touched the scar on her shoulder, small, sharp, healing clean, but the ache beneath it lingered. It had been 3 days since Ardent Team's last mission, 3 days since the jungle, but time didn't move the same way on base. 3 days here felt like 30 seconds, one breath between wars. Outside, dawn was breaking, the kind of gray light that makes everything look temporary. The sound of a helicopter warming up drifted from the airfield. The smell of fuel was heavy in the air. Her phone buzzed once, a message from Roar. Briefing room 700, full team. She closed her locker, slipped on her vest, and stepped out into the corridor. The base was already awake. Soldiers moved like ghosts, half-dressed, half-awake, heads down, tasks automatic. The war didn't stop for sleep. It just rotated shifts. Inside the briefing room, the rest of the team was gathered around a projection map. Vega leaned against the table, coffee in hand, hair tied back tight. Walker was half yawning, rubbing his neck. Hale had that wired look again, too much caffeine, not enough rest. Roar stood at the front, expression unreadable. "Morning," he said, voice steady but gravel-worn. "Grab a seat." Noel took her usual place at the corner. Roar waited until everyone settled before turning to the display. A map of mountainous terrain glowed on the wall. Ridgelines, valleys, small red dots marking enemy outposts. "This is Ardent Valley," he said, tapping the map. "Northern corridor. Dense elevation, thin air, no roads. Intel shows multiple insurgent cells re-establishing there since we hit their jungle roots. Satellite picked up comms chatter 2 nights ago, high volume, encrypted." He changed slides. A grainy drone image appeared, a compound cut into the side of a mountain. "This site here, possible command node. CIA wants confirmation. If it's real, we tag it for an airstrike." "Small recon op?" Hale asked. "Small," Roar confirmed. "No extraction needed if clean. In and out, standard recon. No firefight unless engaged." Vega raised a brow. "That's what they said last time." Roar gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This time we're smarter and the enemy's weaker. We hit them hard, they're rebuilding. Noel said nothing. She just studied the image, the compound buried into rock, half hidden by shadows. Something about it felt wrong, too still. "What's our insertion?" she asked finally. "High-altitude jump," Roar said. "2 clicks east of the objective. Terrain's rough, but it keeps us invisible." "Extraction." "Blackhawk on standby 40 miles out. Same bird, same crew." Walker exhaled, shaking his head. "Guess they missed us." Roar's tone shifted, lower, almost gentle. "We all know what last week was. You did what most teams wouldn't survive, but we don't get to rest just because we earned it. Intel doesn't wait." He paused, scanning their faces. "This one's clean," he said quietly. "No chaos, no surprises. We go in sharp, we come back sharper." He killed the projection. The room dimmed. "Wheels up at 1900 hours. Meeting over." But as the others filed out, Noel stayed seated, her eyes still on the darkened wall. Vega paused at the door. "You good?" "Yeah," Noel said, though it sounded like a reflex, not truth. Vega didn't push. "See you on the flight line." Noel nodded. When the room emptied, she finally stood, collecting her notes, and took a long breath. Her reflection glinted faintly off the black screen. She barely recognized the woman looking back, the same uniform, same posture, but heavier somehow. Later that day, she found herself in the armory again. The armorer looked up from his bench. "Back so soon?" "Apparently I'm popular," she said. He smirked. "That rifle's ready, clean as the day it was born." Noel picked up her HK-416 from the rack. It gleamed under the lights. Every scratch on it was a memory she didn't want but couldn't erase. "Hell of a machine," he said. "Yeah," she murmured, "never quits." She slung it over her shoulder and walked out into the sunlight. The day was clear, painfully bright. The kind of sky that made you forget where you were, until you heard the distant thump of artillery from somewhere far off. She sat on the steps outside the barracks, rifle across her knees. The breeze carried faint laughter from a nearby group of soldiers. It sounded almost normal. She closed her eyes for a moment. The jungle came back instantly. The gunfire, the screams, the smell of burning foliage. She opened her eyes again, breathing out slowly. It was strange how the mind could replay a moment over and over, like it didn't trust the body to remember it right. Footsteps crunched beside her. Roar sat down without asking. For a long time, neither spoke. "You ever think about quitting?" Noel asked quietly. Roar tilted his head, considering. "Every time I make it back." She smiled faintly. "But you don't." He shrugged. "Because I know who replaces me if I do." Noel looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I think we're not meant to come home, we just reset." Roar didn't disagree. He just said, "Maybe home's wherever you stop running." She turned that over in her mind. It didn't sound like something a soldier should say, but maybe that was why it stuck. That evening came fast. The flight line buzzed with activity, engines humming, rotors spinning. The sun dipped low, turning the sky to bronze. Ardent team moved with practiced rhythm, gear checks, final inspections, hand signals instead of words. Noel adjusted her chute straps, tightening until the nylon bit into her shoulders. The air was cold up here, sharper than jungle humidity. The mountains loomed in the distance like black teeth. 5 minutes, the crew chief shouted. Roar gave a thumbs up. "Masks on, remember this is recon, no noise unless fired upon." They lined up near the ramp. Wind screamed through the open door. The red light above them flickered. Noel's pulse stayed steady. She wasn't afraid, not of the jump. Fear didn't work that way anymore. It wasn't about dying. It was about failing someone else. She looked across the row, Vega, calm and fierce. Hale double-checking his comms. Walker muttering under his breath like a prayer. And Roar, eyes forward, already in the next minute. The red light turned green. Go. Noel stepped into the void. The world fell away. Wind tore at her face, the roar filling her ears. For a few seconds she wasn't falling, she was flying. Then the chute snapped open with a violent jerk, and the silence hit. She drifted through the cold air, the mountains rising below her like frozen waves. The valley stretched wide and dark, silver mist curling through it. The only sound was her breath, shallow and even. Argentine status, Roar's voice crackled in her earpiece. All green, Noel replied. On glide path, landing east of objective. Copy, see you on the ground. Her boots hit rock with a dull thud. She rolled, unclipped the chute, and drew her rifle in one smooth motion. The others landed close behind, the sound of canopies fluttering fatting fast. Rally up, Roar ordered quietly. Check gear, move out. They fell into formation, moving through thin pine and rock, the cold biting at their exposed skin. The moonlight gave everything a ghostly edge. It was beautiful in a cruel way. The air was thinner here, the silence heavier. Every sound felt amplified, the crunch of boots on gravel, the distant call of an owl. Hale pointed at his screen. Signal trace from the compound. High-frequency bursts every 20 seconds, could be comms relay. Let's get eyes, Roar said. They crept forward. Noel led, her rifle steady, each step deliberate. Her breath plumed white in the cold. The slope dropped sharply ahead, and beyond it the compound came into view. It was small, almost too small. One central building, 2 satellite huts, a single antenna, but something about it didn't fit. No guards outside, no movement, just stillness. Something off, Vega whispered. Roar nodded. We scan, we tag, we leave, no contact. Hale crouched behind a rock, setting up his drone controller. The tiny recon unit lifted into the air, its faint whir blending with the wind. The feed came through his tablet, infrared silhouettes of cold buildings, empty corridors. Nothing, Hale muttered. No heat signatures, place looks abandoned. Abandoned doesn't mean safe, Roar said. Hart, your point, check the perimeter. Noel moved forward, her steps soundless on the frost. She reached the fence, scanned left, then right. Her scope picked up nothing. No lights, no motion. She exhaled, whispered, clear on this side. Then a sound. Soft, faint from underground. A hum, electrical. She froze, crouched lower. Hold up, she whispered. I hear something, power source below ground. Roar joined her, eyes narrowing. You're sure? She nodded. Could be a hidden room, generator, or worse. Roar thought for a second. We check it. They moved in quiet, methodical. Noel led through the outer gate, covering corners, her finger resting against the trigger guard. Inside, the air was colder still. Dust hung in beams of moonlight through broken windows. Walker pointed toward a steel hatch in the floor, half concealed under debris. That might be it. Noel knelt, brushing dirt away. The handle was worn smooth, like it had been used recently. Vega moved to cover. You thinking trap? Always, Noel said softly. She drew a deep breath, grabbed the handle and lifted. The hatch opened with a low metallic groan. Cold air rushed up, and with it a smell. Oil, metal, and something else. Death. Noel's light flicked on, beam cutting through the dark below. A stairwell, narrow, leading down into black. She looked back at Roar. He gave one slow nod. She raised her rifle and started down. Each step echoed faintly, swallowed by the dark. At the bottom, a corridor lined with flickering lights, and something she hadn't expected. Cages. Dozens of them. Empty except for the blood. Noel froze, breath catching in her throat. The metallic tang hit the back of her tongue. What the hell is this? Vega whispered behind her. Roar's voice came low. Not comms, not a command post. Noel's light swept the wall, symbols, Arabic script spray-painted in black. and one phrase in English scrawled in rough letters. They were never alone. Her skin went cold. She turned slowly, flashlight trembling. And that's when she saw it in the far cage, half hidden in shadow. A camera still recording, the red light blinking. Someone had been here recently. Maybe still was. Noel's voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, we're not alone down here. What do you do when the mission you thought you understood turns into something you can't explain?" Noel Hart stood at the bottom of the stairs, her rifle raised, breath shallow, the red light from the camera blinking in steady rhythm. The air down there felt wrong, thick, stale, metallic, the kind of air that remembered things. Behind her, Vega moved slowly, light sweeping over the cages. Each one was streaked with dried blood, dark handprints on the steel bars, claw marks carved into the walls. Whatever happened here hadn't been quick. Hale crouched by a wall terminal, running gloved fingers over the dust-covered panel. "There's power," he whispered. "Residual current. Backup generators still online." "Can you access it?" Roar asked quietly. "I can try." Noel's beam landed on a blood-stained boot lying in one cage. Civilian pattern. She frowned, stepping closer. The floor crunched beneath her boots, spent shell casings. Not old, either. She crouched, picked one up. 5.56 NATO, she said softly. Vega turned. "Our ammo." "Yeah." Roar's jaw tightened. "Then somebody beat us here." Hale's voice broke through the static of the underground silence. "Sir, I've got something. Systems partially active. Cameras, motion sensors, local network still running. Whatever this place was, it was built with serious tech." "Pull what you can," Roar said. The screens on the wall flickered, one by one, bringing fragments of footage to life, grainy, low light, timestamps looping endlessly. And there it was. The same corridor, the same cages, but filled. Men, women, blindfolded, hands bound, sitting in silence as shadowed figures moved among them. Interrogations, torture, and something else: injections, masks, data, tablets. Noel's stomach turned cold. She looked away. "What the hell are we looking at?" Vega whispered. Roar's voice was tight. "Off-the-books facility, probably ours once. Abandoned, looks like they took it over." "But why keep it powered?" Noel asked. Hale froze, eyes locked on the feed. "Because someone turned it back on 30 minutes ago." The words hit like a pulse. Noel's grip tightened on her rifle. "Say that again." "System logs show manual reactivation. Exactly 31 minutes before we landed." Walker swore under his breath. "So someone's still here." Roar motioned them into a defensive semicircle. "Weapons up, move slow, Hart your point, Vega cover rear." Noel nodded once, swallowing the lump in her throat. The flashlight beam danced across the walls as they advanced deeper into the corridor. Every few steps she thought she heard something: the scrape of metal, a faint breath, the sound of movement just ahead. But when she stopped, it stopped too. The corridor split ahead, two paths, both descending deeper underground. "Left or right?" Vega whispered. Roar hesitated for half a heartbeat, then pointed left. "We stick to one path, clear, then double back." Noel moved forward first. The air grew colder, the smell stronger, a mix of rust and decay. Her boots brushed against something soft. She froze, looked down. A body. Dressed in camouflage but not insurgent. American. The patch on the shoulder was faded, but the outline of the insignia was unmistakable. "Sir," she whispered, "U.S. uniform, looks like Army." Roar knelt beside her, scanning the corpse. "No dog tags, looks recent, maybe a month." Vega exhaled slowly. "That doesn't make sense. We didn't have any missions in this sector." "Not officially," Roar said quietly. They moved past the body. The passage opened into a larger chamber, concrete walls, racks of old equipment, and a table covered with papers and maps. Hale snapped a few photos, uploading to his tablet. Intel Goldmine. This was a research site. Biometric testing, DNA trials, tracking implant data, all black-level projects. Whose projects? Noel asked. Not ours anymore, Hale said, scrolling. Files show transfers. Someone else picked this place up after we pulled out. Vega leaned over the table. You're telling me we left this behind? Looks that way. Noel's gaze drifted to one of the maps. It showed Ardent Valley, marked in concentric red circles, each one labeled with strange coordinates. She didn't recognize them, but one line of text written across the margin made her skin crawl. Control begins with silence. She didn't know what it meant, but she didn't like it. Sir, Hale whispered suddenly. Motion sensors picking up activity. Corridor we didn't clear, right-hand tunnel. Multiple signatures moving. Roar's voice dropped low. How many? 5, no 6. Direction. Toward us. Noel's stomach tightened. Lights off, Roar ordered. Instant blackness swallowed them. Only the faint hum of machinery filled the space. Noel could feel her pulse pounding in her ears. She crouched low, rifle steady, eyes scanning through the faint green haze of her NVGs. Footsteps slow, deliberate. Shapes appeared in the tunnel, 6 figures moving in tactical formation, rifles up. Vega whispered, our guys. Negative, Roar murmured. Their spacing's off, not trained like us. Noel sighted through her optic, crosshairs steady. Wait for my mark, Roar breathed. The figures crept closer, flashlights sweeping the walls. One of them stopped near the dead American soldier, crouched to inspect the body. The beam passed over the ardent patch. He muttered something in a language Noel didn't recognize, then raised his rifle. Mark, Roar said softly. The corridor erupted in gunfire. Noel's rifle barked 3 times, precise, rhythmic. The lead 2 figures went down instantly. Vega's rounds caught another before he could dive for cover. The rest scattered, returning fire blindly. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness. Bullets sparked off the steel cages. Contact front, 3 left, Roar shouted. Noel shifted position, firing from behind a pillar. One insurgent broke from cover, screaming, rifle up. She cut him down mid-step. The echo faded. The last 2 were gone. Cease fire, Roar ordered. Hold positions. Silence. Hale's voice came through comms, low and shaken. Sir, thermal scan shows 1 survivor, wounded, back near the tunnel. Walker with me, Roar said. Heart cover. Noel followed them to the body. A young insurgent, barely more than a kid, maybe 20. Blood soaked his leg, pooling under him. He looked up with wide, terrified eyes. Roar knelt, switching to the local dialect. Who sent you here? The boy shook his head, gasping. Roar pressed. Who told you to reactivate this facility? The boy's breath came in sharp bursts. He tried to speak, but the words were broken, mangled by fear. Then in halting English he said, Not us, already here, watching. Noel's skin prickled. What do you mean, watching? The boy's eyes rolled back. His chest shuddered once, then stilled. Walker checked for a pulse. He's gone. Roar stood slowly. We're pulling out. Whatever this is, it's above our pay grade. Noel hesitated. Sir, if there's intel here. Bag what we can, Roar said sharply. We're not dying in someone else's ghost story. They gathered drives, maps, anything small enough to carry. Hale transferred the last of the data to his tablet. Then, as they turned to leave, the lights flickered. Not from gunfire, from power surge. The hum under the floor grew louder, a deep vibration like the earth itself was stirring. Tech, Roar barked. What the hell is that? Hale stared at his screen, eyes widening. Sir, the generator's not just running power, it's transmitting. Wideband, UHF. Transmitting to who? Vega demanded. Hale's face went pale. Our satellite. Noel felt the world tilt slightly, like gravity had shifted. That's impossible. Roar's tone hardened. Shut it down. I can't, Hale said. It's remote locked. Whoever turned this on did it from off-site. We're just the receiver. The hum grew deeper, the lights flickering faster. Time to leave, Roar ordered. They sprinted for the exit, boots hammering against concrete. The air seemed to vibrate now, pressure building in their ears. Noel reached the stairwell first, throwing herself up the steps two at a time. Behind her, Vega cursed, hauling gear. They burst out into the cold mountain air, lungs burning. The moon hung bright above the ridge, indifferent to what was happening below. Roar hit his comms. Base, this is Ardent Team. Emergency transmission, facility compromised, possible data hijack. Repeat, unknown party accessing U.S. satellite channel. Static. No reply. Base confirm. Still nothing. Hale looked up, fear creeping into his voice. Sir, I'm not getting signal. Full comms jam. Roar swore under his breath. We move, now back to the LZ. They started down the ridge, the cold air cutting through them. Noel glanced back once. The compound below flickered like a heartbeat, light flashing in rhythmic bursts. It almost looked alive. She didn't know why, but the thought hit her. Whatever that facility had been built for, it wasn't over. It was waking up. Half an hour later, they reached the valley floor. The air was colder, sharper. Frost coated the leaves. Roar called for extraction again. No response. Tech, try short range, he ordered. Hale shook his head. Nothing, we're blacked out across all bands. Vega kicked at a rock, frustration mixing with fear. We can't just sit here. We won't, Roar said. We move to fallback point Echo. We can reach open air by dawn. They kept walking, weaving through the dark forest. The only sounds were the crunch of boots and the faint whisper of wind through the pines. Then Noel froze. Stop. The others turned. She pointed to the ground, boot prints not theirs, fresh. Roar moved closer, crouched, scanning the soil. They're following us. Or leading us, Noel said softly. A sound echoed through the trees, faint, distant, mechanical, like rotors. Extraction, Vega asked. Roar listened, then shook his head. Too small, not a Blackhawk. The sound grew louder, closer. Noel raised her rifle, scanning the tree line. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. Then a drone burst through the canopy, small, matte black, silent except for the soft whine of its rotors. It hovered 20 feet above them, red light blinking. Hale's tablet buzzed in his pack. He yanked it out, eyes wide. It's pinging me, same signal as the facility. The drone turned in the air, its lens fixing on Noel. Her heartbeat slowed. The machine hovered for 3 long seconds, then shot upward into the dark and vanished. Silence followed. Vega exhaled. Someone knows we're here. Roar looked at Noel. That thing wasn't theirs, he said quietly. That was ours. Noel didn't answer. She just looked toward the horizon, where the mountain loomed like a question that had no good answer. Somewhere out there, someone had built something and left it running long enough for them to find it. But the worst part wasn't that it was still alive. It was that whoever had made it knew they'd come. And had been waiting. When the mountain breathes, you can feel it. The ground hums. The air changes weight. Every sound seems to wait for something to happen. Noel Hart could feel it now, that strange vibration under her boots as she moved through the dark forest. Her lungs burned from the climb, but she didn't dare slow down. Behind her, Vega's breathing came in ragged bursts. Hale stumbled once, caught himself, kept running. Keep spacing, Roar said quietly over comms. We're still being tracked. Tracked, the word settled like lead in her gut. They'd been moving for an hour since the drone vanished, and yet the forest didn't feel any emptier. Every now and then, a flicker of movement appeared in the corner of her eye, something darting between the trees, too fast to name. Walker paused to adjust the sling on his med pack. "Sir, if they wanted us dead, they'd have taken the shot by now." "Maybe they're waiting to see where we're going," Vega muttered. Roar didn't reply. His silence was an answer on its own. Noel tightened her grip on her rifle. The woods stretched endless black trunks, silver light cutting through the mist. It felt less like escape and more like being absorbed. She kept scanning the tree line, her thoughts racing in rhythm with her steps. If that drone was American, then who had control of it? If the facility was broadcasting to their satellite, what data was being sent, and to whom? She didn't have the answers, and that was worse than any enemy. They reached a clearing near the ridge, the wind colder now, carrying the faint scent of snow. The stars overhead looked sharp enough to cut. Roar raised a hand. "Hold position." Everyone dropped to a crouch. He checked his GPS unit, a small green display that flickered weakly. "We're 10 clicks from fallback point Echo, terrain steep from here." Vega pulled off her gloves, blowing warmth into her hands. "If this keeps up, we'll be frostbitten before we're shot." "Then move faster," Roar said. They pushed on, climbing the ridge in silence. Rocks shifted under their boots, sending small slides of gravel skittering down the slope. Halfway up, Noel heard it again, that faint mechanical whine, drifting in and out with the wind. She stopped. "Hold," she whispered. The team froze. The sound grew clearer, a low hum circling. "Drones again?" Vega asked. "Maybe," Hale said, "but it's moving slower, almost like it's—" A burst of static hit their comms. Everyone winced. Noel ripped her earpiece free. "What the—" Before she could finish, a blinding light exploded across the ridge, white, searing, flooding the forest. "Contact down," Roar barked. They dove for cover, as the beam swept the ground like a searchlight. "Visual only," Noel shouted. "No heat sigs on scope." "EMP pulse," Hale guessed, trying to reboot his comms. Roar fired a flare to the side, trying to draw the beam's focus, but it didn't move toward the light. It stayed on them. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the beam snapped off. Silence rushed in like vacuum. Noel lay still, breath shallow, finger against the trigger. Her ears rang. "What the hell was that?" Vega whispered. Roar didn't answer. He was staring at his tablet, the screen dead. "All systems fried," Hale said. "Comms, GPS, drone link, everything gone." Walker let out a sharp breath. "Then we're blind and lost in the middle of nowhere." Noel looked up toward the sky where the light had come from. Nothing. No helicopter silhouette, no aircraft noise, no movement. Just a perfect, empty night. Something about it felt deliberate, like whatever had done this wanted them to know it could. "Sir," Vega said, voice low, "what if it's not them following us? What if it's us being called back?" Roar turned to her, eyes hard. "We don't speculate, we move." They descended the ridge, sticking close now, every sense wired. Hours blurred together. The forest thickened again, roots clawing up from the soil like old bones. The moon dipped behind the clouds. At one point, Noel tripped over a half-buried object, a crate. Military issue. Stenciled letters still visible through the dirt. U.S. property, Recon Supply 417. She frowned. "Sir, this crate's ours." Roar crouched beside her, brushing frost away. Cash drop could be years old. Walker checked the latch, sealed. "Open it," Roar said. They pried it loose. Inside, MREs, old field batteries, flare rounds, and a hard drive. Hale stared at it like it was a ghost. "This is impossible. These cache IDs were discontinued before I even enlisted." Vega muttered, "Then who's maintaining them?" Roar's jaw tightened. "Doesn't matter, we're taking it." He handed it to Noel. "You carry it." She slung it into her pack without a word. They moved again, but something had shifted. The forest felt closer now, the quiet heavier. Noel's thoughts began to wander, flashes of memory bleeding through the adrenaline. The jungle, Mercer bleeding out. The look in his eyes, confusion, not fear, like he'd seen something she hadn't. Then the message scrawled on the wall of the facility. They were never alone. Her mind tried to piece it together, but the pieces didn't fit. Maybe that was the point. They stopped again near a frozen stream, taking a moment to refill canteens. Noel crouched by the water, watching her reflection ripple. "You ever think about why we keep doing this?" she asked quietly. Vega looked at her. "What do you mean?" "Chasing ghosts, cleaning up messes that never end." Vega gave a tired smile. "Because someone has to, and we're stupid enough to volunteer." Noel smiled faintly back. "Maybe." She looked at her reflection again, pale face, hollow eyes, a stranger wearing her uniform. She wondered when that shift had happened. The moment duty became something less like purpose and more like survival. Roar's voice cut through the cold. "On your feet, we're moving." They followed the stream until dawn began bleeding into the sky, a soft, gray light over the peaks. The frost sparkled. It would have been beautiful if it weren't for the exhaustion. Roar checked his compass, dead. He looked to Noel. "You still remember how to navigate by terrain?" She nodded. "Landmark tracking. If we follow this valley north, we'll hit the old patrol road in 2 clicks. Then that's where we go." They started north. But halfway through the valley, Noel stopped. Her boot had brushed something, a wire, nearly invisible against the snow. "Trip line," she whispered. Everyone froze. Roar's voice was low. "Don't move." Noel followed the wire with her eyes, up to a small device hidden under a rock. Her stomach clenched. "Claymore directional." Walker swore softly. "We just walked into someone's field." Roar's tone stayed calm, controlled. "We backtrack, slow." Noel eased 1 step back. Another, the snow creaked. Then a click. "Down," she shouted. The explosion ripped through the valley, light and sound swallowing everything. The shockwave knocked her off her feet, the world turning white and silent. When the ringing faded, she was on the ground, half buried in snow. Her rifle lay a few feet away. She reached for it, vision swimming. Smoke hung thick in the air. "Status," Roar shouted. "I'm good," Vega called. "Walker." "Alive," came the cough. "Hurt but alive." Hale stumbled up, blood trickling from his ear. "They knew our route, they knew." Noel blinked, trying to focus. "Who?" Before anyone could answer, movement flickered across the ridge. Figures, silhouettes moving fast, deliberate. "Contact front," Vega yelled. Gunfire erupted again, echoing through the valley. Noel dove behind a fallen log, returning fire. Her round sparked against rock, pushing the attackers back. "They're flanking left," Hale shouted. "Fall back," Roar ordered. "Smoke cover." Walker threw a canister. Gray mist filled the air, blinding everything. They scrambled backward, slipping on snow and ice. Noel fired 3 more shots into the haze, buying them seconds. Then she felt a hand grab her vest, Roar, pulling her behind a boulder. "Move!" They bolted toward the tree line. Bullets tore through branches above them. Vega stumbled but kept running. Hale was limping now, clutching his side. "Extraction not coming," he shouted. "We're on our own." Roar's reply was a growl. "Then we make our own extraction." They pushed deeper into the forest until the gunfire faded behind them. Only their breathing remained, heavy, uneven, desperate. When they finally stopped, Roar turned, scanning them quickly. "Injuries." "Nothing fatal," Walker said, checking Hale's side. "Through and through, he'll live." "Good," Roar said. "We find cover and regroup. Then we figure out who's hunting us." Noel leaned against a tree, trying to slow her heartbeat. The pack on her back felt heavier, the hard drive pressing against her spine like a secret that didn't want to stay buried. She thought of the boy in the facility, his last words. already here watching. Maybe he hadn't been warning them about an enemy. Maybe he'd been talking about something else. The forest creaked around them, wind whispering through the branches like a voice just out of reach. Vega broke the silence. "Sir, what if this isn't about intel at all? What if we were meant to find that place?" Roar met her eyes. "Then the question is, why us?" Noel looked at the mountains through the mist. A strange thought rose in her mind, quiet, cold, unshakable. Maybe they hadn't been sent on a mission. Maybe they'd been sent as bait. At some point, the silence becomes heavier than the noise. It wraps around you, fills the air, and makes you wonder if the world's still moving. For Noel Hart, that silence was worse than gunfire. They'd been walking for hours deeper into the northern woods, away from the valley where the claymore had gone off. Their bodies ached, their breath fogging in the cold. The snow had thickened, swallowing tracks behind them. The mountains rose higher now, their slopes streaked with shadow. No one spoke much, not since Vega said the word bait. It had hung there like a curse. Roar led the column, scanning ahead through his rifle scope. Walker trudged behind, half carrying Hale, whose limp had grown worse. Vega followed rear guard, every so often glancing back over her shoulder. Noel walked in the middle, her mind a storm of half-finished thoughts. If Vega was right, if they'd been sent to find that place on purpose, then what was the real objective? And why send them, a 5-person recon team, to walk straight into something that looked more like a ghost operation than a live target? It didn't add up. But war rarely did. She adjusted her pack, feeling the weight of the hard drive against her spine again. That drive was the one thing she hadn't dared open. Roar had ordered it sealed until they reached friendly territory. Except there wasn't any friendly territory anymore, not with comms down and satellites blacked out. Snow crunched behind her. Vega drew up beside her, voice low. "You're thinking too loud." Noel managed a faint smile, hard not to. Vega's eyes softened. "You're wondering if he knew." Roar. "Yeah," Noel said quietly. "You think he did?" Vega's answer came slow. "If he did, he's carrying it just like we are." They walked a few more minutes in silence before Vega spoke again. "You ever feel like this job stopped being about saving people?" Noel looked at her. "It feels like we're just cleaning up lies," Vega said, "one after another." Noel didn't answer, but she didn't need to. Vega saw the answer in her eyes. When the sun finally crested the ridgeline, it wasn't warm. It was pale, washed out, ghost light through a wall of fog. They stopped to rest near an abandoned weather station, a crumbling outpost half swallowed by ice. The antenna was bent, the windows broken. "Shelter," Roar said. 2 hours, then we move." Inside, the air was stale but calm. Walker and Vega started a small heat pack, while Hale collapsed against the wall, clutching his side. Noel leaned her rifle against the door, then finally slipped her pack off. She stared at it for a long moment. Roar noticed. "You're thinking about opening it." "Yeah," she said quietly. He didn't stop her, he just nodded once. "Do it." She pulled out the hard drive, metal, cold, scratched from age. Hale handed her a field tablet, still half functional. "Batteries low, make it quick." Noel plugged it in. The screen flickered to life, showing a series of encrypted directories. "Files are old," Hale murmured. "Pre-withdrawal logs." She opened the first one. Video feed timestamped 5 years ago. A conference room. American flags on the wall. 3 men in suits, 1 in uniform. The voice audio was faint but clear enough. "Project terminated after Phase 6. Assets reabsorbed into shadow divisions. The site will remain dormant unless reactivated by contingency trigger." The uniformed man leaned forward, and the personnel. "Non-existent. Officially, Ardent facility never existed." The feed cut. Noel scrolled to another file. More footage, lab recordings. Human subjects. Tag numbers, vitals, experiments in behavioral response under extreme stress. She froze. One of the names listed on screen made her throat tighten. Heart Noel, Phase Observation Group 4. Her blood went cold. Vega leaned closer. What is that? Noel couldn't speak. She opened the next clip. A woman sat in a chair, electrodes attached to her temples. A younger version of herself, same eyes, same scar on the shoulder, same posture. The camera timestamp read ARDNT04, Cognitive Response Test. A voice off-screen said, "Agent Hart, do you consent to continue?" Her recorded self nodded, "Yes, sir." The clip ended. Noel sat back, her mind spinning. "That's not possible," Walker whispered. "You weren't even active 5 years ago." "I wasn't," Noel said softly. "At least not officially." Roar's jaw clenched. "You were part of the original site." She looked up at him. "You knew." His silence answered for him. The air in the outpost felt colder now. "You were never supposed to see that," Roar said finally. "That facility was part of an experimental stress control program. Neural reinforcement, resilience mapping, psychological warfare." "On soldiers?" Vega asked, voice sharp. Roar nodded once. "They built you to survive anything." Noel's laugh was small and hollow. "And you sent me back there, to remember it." He met her gaze. "No, to end it." The room went silent. Roar walked to the broken window, staring out at the snow. "That signal, the one that reactivated the base, it was keyed to your ID. You were the contingency trigger." The words felt like a blade twisting inside her. "So this mission," Noel whispered, "wasn't recon, it was containment." Roar turned back, his expression heavy with something close to regret. "You weren't supposed to find out this way. Command said the system had been wiped, that it couldn't come back online without you." Vega stepped forward, angry now. "You knew she'd be the key. You used her as bait." Roar's voice broke. "We didn't have a choice." Hale slammed his fist against the table. "You always have a choice." Roar looked down. "Not when they already made it for you." Noel stood up slowly, the hard drive still in her hand. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Then that message on the wall, "They were never alone," wasn't a threat. "It was a reminder," Roar said quietly. "You weren't alone in that program, there were others. They died there, you didn't." Noel's breath caught. The room felt too small, the air too thin. "So I'm what? A weapon?" Roar met her eyes. "You're proof that humanity can survive hell." She shook her head. "No, I'm proof they'll send us back into it if it means erasing what they built." For a long time, no one spoke. Outside, the wind howled through the trees like a warning. Then the sound again, rotors, faint, distant. Roar turned toward the window. "Helicopter inbound." "Rescue?" Walker asked. Roar's voice was low. "We didn't call for one." Noel grabbed her rifle, moved to the doorway. The wind carried the faint thump-thump-thump of blades. A Blackhawk blacked out, no lights. It circled once above the ridge, then dropped low. Vega swore softly. "They found us." Roar checked his weapon. "Maybe they're here to extract us." Noel didn't look away from the sky, or to make sure we don't talk. The helicopter hovered above the outpost. A loudspeaker crackled, distorted. "Ardent Team, this is Command Bird 27. Secure perimeter. Prepare for pickup." Roar hesitated. The voice came again. "Repeat, Ardent Team, prepare for pickup." Noel frowned. "That's not our frequency." Roar's eyes flicked to hers. "You sure?" She nodded. "They're faking it." Gunfire erupted from the tree line. Bullets tore through the side of the building, shattering glass and wood. "Contact!" Vega yelled. They dove for cover as rounds ripped through the walls. Walker dragged Hale behind a steel cabinet. Roar fired through the window, short controlled bursts. Noel moved to flank, sliding behind a broken console. Through her scope, she saw them, operators, full gear, U.S. uniforms, but no flags, no insignia. "Sir," she said quietly, "those aren't insurgents." "I see them," Roar replied grimly. "Friendly weapons, unfriendly intent." The Black Hawk flared overhead, door guns opening up suppressive fire hammering the ground. Snow erupted in bursts. Noel rolled, firing through the chaos. Her round struck the lead gunner. He dropped, tumbling from the door. The helicopter wobbled, then steadied. "Vega, back exit," Roar shouted. "We're moving." They sprinted through the rear corridor, boots slamming against concrete. The roar outside was deafening. Walker covered the door with smoke grenades, thick plumes filling the air. They burst out the back, sliding down the slope behind the outpost. The helicopter's spotlight swept past overhead but didn't lock. "Head north," Roar shouted. They ran, stumbling, sliding, half blind in the snow. The gunfire faded behind them. When they finally stopped, miles from the ridge, dawn had fully broken. The light was clean again, untouched. They collapsed against a line of rocks, lungs heaving. Vega ripped off her helmet, staring at the horizon. "They tried to erase us." Roar didn't argue. He just looked tired, older than he'd seemed an hour ago. Noel sat apart from the group, staring down at the hard drive still clutched in her hand. "What are you going to do with it?" Vega asked softly. Noel didn't answer right away. She turned the drive over, watching the light catch its edge. "If I hand it over," she said, "they'll bury it again. If I destroy it, the truth dies with it." Roar spoke, voice low. "So what do you do?" Noel looked out at the mountains. The snow glowed gold under the sun. "I tell it," she said. Vega frowned. "Tell who?" "Anyone who will listen." She pulled her combat knife, set the hard drive on a rock and slammed the blade down. Metal cracked, sparks flying. She hit it again, and again, until the drive shattered. Fragments scattered across the snow. She stood there, breathing hard, the broken pieces gleaming like glass. Roar watched her quietly. "You sure about that?" Noel nodded. "I'm done carrying ghosts." For the first time in days, the air felt still, clean. Roar slung his rifle, looked at the team. "We move east. There's a safe corridor along the ridge. We'll find our way home." Vega smirked faintly. "If home still exists." Roar gave a small nod. "We'll make it exist." They started walking again, slow, steady together. Noel trailed last, her eyes on the horizon. The wind brushed her face, cold and alive. She thought of the cages, the words on the wall, the boy's voice. They were never alone. Maybe he'd been right. Maybe no one ever really is, not in war, not in life. The ghosts we carry are just the echoes of choices we couldn't escape. She adjusted her pack, her rifle, her breath. The world ahead was uncertain, a long road of silence, questions, and unfinished wars. But for the first time, Noel didn't feel trapped in it. She felt free. Because sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do isn't fight. It's to walk away with the truth still inside her. And maybe, just maybe, that's what special forces are really made of.